Hey everyone, Vance here from Proline Racing with another shop talk. Today we're going to go over our complete line of shocks. We're going to go through some of the benefits and features of each of our shocks and then show you some tricks and tips on how to fill them. All right, we'll start off here with our biggest shock. This is made specifically for the Traxxas X-MAXX. Now, the shock shaft, the body, the spring kit, and the cap are all available individually and are all compatible directly with the stock shocks, so you can upgrade the stock shocks with any one or all of the components here. The first and most obvious component is this ultra reservoir shock cap. Now this is a working reservoir, so there's a divider piston in here, and as the shock shaft enters the body, the displaced oil works its way through this cap, and this reservoir reduces the overall pressure in the shock, makes it more consistent, and keeps your seals alive longer. Next, the shock body and collar are an upgrade to the stock. It's got an aluminum collar and this bright clear anodized body. Then the shaft. The shafts are larger than stock, and they're also DLC coated. It's got this hard black coating on them, makes them ultra tough. And lastly, our dual rate spring assortment. They come in a set of 3 spring rates of uppers and lowers, red shown here being the stiffest. The next softest is yellow, and the softest is our green, to let you mix and match and come up with the best spring combo for your setup. Up next, our PowerStroke shocks for Traxxas MAXX and ARRMA 3S and 4S vehicles. All these shocks feature heavy-duty shock guards, dual-rate springs, fully aluminum bodies and aluminum caps, and heavy-duty shafts. These shocks are a great upgrade from your stock shocks because they give you added durability and they let you fine-tune your suspension with the dual-rate springs. Next up, our PowerStroke and ProSpec shocks for short course and 10th scale monster truck. Now the PowerStroke and ProSpec shocks are some of our most popular, not only because of the features they have, but also they fit so many cars, short course trucks, monster trucks, even other 10 scale trucks like Bandit, Wrestler, and Stampedes. So the PowerStroke shocks are a great all-around bashing durable shock. They have fully aluminum caps and bodies, heavy duty shafts, and dual rate springs. The ProSpec shocks are a race specific shock. They feature a light X-ring seal, single rate springs, and a large bore diameter for maximum racing performance. All right, lastly, our rock crawling category. Now to start out, ProSpec scalar shocks, they come in 3 different lengths, 70 to 75, 90 to 95, and 105 to 110 millimeter for any of your custom applications. So the ProSpec scalars have aluminum bodies, aluminum caps. The longer 2 versions have dual rate springs, but they're very narrow overall, which makes them great direct replacements to your stock shocks, and they retain that nice scale look. While the ProSpecs are great all-around scale shocks, if you're looking for the ultimate crawling performance, we offer our big bore scalar shock. So the big bore scalar shocks feature an aluminum cap, aluminum body, an X-ring seal, and a single piece multi-rate spring, which gives you the same functionality as a dual rate spring, but allows us to maximize the shock body volume. So that covers our complete shock lineup. As you can see, these are great upgrades for your basher, crawler, or race truck. And aside from the ProSpec scalar shocks, we offer a spring assortment pack for each of these shocks to really dial in your suspension. So all of our shocks come fully assembled, but without oil. We leave that up to you to decide the best viscosity for your application. There are 2 main types of caps. The PowerStroke short course shocks and the big bore scalar shocks have a bladder cap. The rest of them have an emulsion style cap. So we'll show you how to fill each of those. The X-MAXX, specifically the ultra reservoir cap, has its own video on how to fill because it is unique. So if you want to learn how to fill that, check out that video. So let's start out with our most popular and common shock, the short course and 10 scale monster truck PowerStroke. So all you'll need to fill your shocks is oil, of course, a rag to clean up any excess, and it does help to have a stand if you're doing a full set. All right, so we'll just pop the spring off here, get it out of the way, and remove the cap. So like I said, the PowerStroke features a bladder cap. You can see it in there. Now how a bladder works is it holds a pocket of air which compresses and compensates for the change in volume as the shock cycles. And now the method to fill it, pretty simple. We'll pull the shock shaft all the way out, fill it about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way full. And then we'll cycle the shaft up and down couple times, get the air out from underneath the piston. And we'll let it sit for just a minute or two.
2 very boring minutes later.
All right, so after all of the air bubbles are out, we can finish filling the shock. We're gonna fill it pretty much almost level full with the shaft all the way down. I go just below level here. And then I'll push the shock shaft about halfway up just to see where I'm at. I think that's gonna be too much. So I'll pour just a little bit out. Again, push the shock shaft about halfway up. It's not an exact science, but roughly halfway up. You can kind of see where the oil's at. It's somewhere near level. And we'll just go ahead and screw the cap on there. It's a good starting point. You'll see the air and oil come out these little bleeder holes in the side of the cap. And right before it fully seats down and seals, we'll push the shaft up to completely bottomed, or at least, you know, within a quarter or eighth of an inch bottoming out. And then we can tighten the cap down, wipe off any excess. And now it should cycle pretty smooth. And what you're looking for here is that it doesn't hydraulically lock, so it goes all the way bottom without locking first. And if it does, then you're good to go. Then we'll just put the spring back on. And it's ready to install. So that covers the bladder style cap for the short course and 10 scale monster truck PowerStroke, as well as the big bore scalar shocks. So moving on to the emulsion style cap, this process will be the same for the Pro-Spec scalars, the ARRMA PowerStrokes, and this X-MAXX PowerStroke. So we'll pull the spring off and the cap. So you can see there's no bladder in this cap, just an O-ring seal. So the compensation of volume for the shaft comes from just air bubbles that are distributed within the oil as it cycles. So the filling's the same. Fill it, you know, a third, halfway full, something like that. And we'll push the piston up and down a couple times to get those air bubbles out. And then we'll let it sit for a few minutes again. All right, so when most of the bubbles are out, we can finish filling the shock. So we want to fill an emulsion style shock so that it's level full or maybe above level full when the shock shaft is all the way up. So there's just below level maybe, and then I'll push the shaft up. See how it kind of bulges up above level? That's probably a good starting point. So I'll go ahead and put the cap on with the shaft all the way down. I'm gonna screw it all the way in until I feel that seal touch. Then I'll back it off, just a partial turn. And now with the rag handy, I'm gonna push the shock shaft all the way up. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of oil come out as we tighten the cap all the way down. A little bit of air and oil just came out there. So if nothing comes out, you're gonna pull the cap off and add a little bit of oil. But we had just a little bit come out, so I think it's perfect. Clean it up. All right, so now we'll cycle the shock. And as you're running, this will draw in some air. But just make sure that the shock can compress all the way without locking up hydraulically. And if it does lock up somewhere in here, then just pop the cap off and push the shaft up and bleed a little more oil out. So we can now put the spring back on. And now this is ready to go. All right, lastly, we have the 10 scale Pro-Spec. It's pretty much the same thing, but it's got this little bleeder screw in the cap. So I'll go ahead and pull this out first. And then we can pull the spring off. And pull the cap off and we'll fill this just like the other two, same procedure. About halfway up, cycle it a couple times. Let the air bubbles come out for a few minutes. All right, so we'll continue filling the shock. Just like the last one, we'll go about level full, somewhere near level full with the shaft down. Just so that we're above level full when the shaft is all the way up. Somewhere there is probably good. We'll put the cap on. Now these ProSpec shocks also come with some little tools that help hold on to the caps because they are pretty small. So we can tighten the cap down. And then we can push the shaft up and hold a rag around this bleeder hole because we're going to push oil out of the bleed hole. Take this spacer out first. So all the excess air and oil can come out of that bleed hole. So just wipe that up. And then hold the shock shaft all the way up as you put the bleed screw back in. So lightly snug that bleed screw. Wipe off any excess. And you're ready to go. Again, check that it cycles. It's going to draw in a little bit of air, just enough. Make sure it completely bottoms out without locking up. And you put the spring back on. This little spacer. It's ready to put on. All right, so that covers how to fill these shocks with their different styles of caps. If you want to learn how to fill the X-MAXX shocks, it's a little bit more of an involved process, so check out that complete video here. Thanks for watching this shop talk. If you have any specific questions about our shocks, be sure to leave us a comment below. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for notifications of new videos, especially like these shop talks. For more information on our whole line of shocks and all the other products we make, visit ProLineRacing.com.